When Nick Saban retired at Alabama, a lot of the SEC, particularly Auburn and Tennessee fans, finally said, now this is our chance. The problem is that I feel like people were too eager about this sentiment, and it has caused some problems, particularly just in terms of brain-dead people spewing opinions online that are not based in fact. So I'm here to set the record straight. Alabama is going to be just fine under Kalen Deboer, even if they don't have the exact level of success that they have under Nick Saban. It's clear that they hired someone that can coach and that can recruit, which everyone just kind of assumes he couldn't. And trust me, I've got receipts on that. A lot of people laughed when Alabama flipped Kalen Russell from SMU because, "Herdy-der, he came from SMU, he can't possibly be good." Well, let's think about this. Don't just look at the school you flipped him from, because let's be honest, SMU is actually doing pretty well as far as raising money for recruiting and those sorts of things, and especially in the portal, but we're specifically talking about high school. SMU is going to be a good program going forward, especially with the move to a now power conference. We'll see how long the ACC stays a power conference, but they are now in a power conference, and they were a pretty good program in the previous years before that. Looking at the school a guy was previously committed to doesn't tell the full story on whether he's going to be a good or a bad player. You know, SMU might not have the prestige of an Alabama, but, you know, if the coaching staff saw something, they were going to pursue him, and they did. He's rated a top 10 quarterback by all recruiting services available, so assuming that he's just not a good player because of that is ridiculous when the facts don't prove that. The facts don't support your claim, and they also don't support the claim that Kalen Deboer won't be able to recruit in the SEC. It seems like he's able to. And of course the Cope response to this is, well, no, that's just Saban doing it because he's still involved in the program. Which I have to respond, what? You're a moron if you think this. The head coach is still the most involved person in recruiting. If Saban were doing the recruiting single-handedly, it would not be where it is right now, because he's not the head coach. He doesn't have the gravitas, even though he is previously the best coach in the sport. He doesn't have the gravitas to be able to, make decisions and make things happen. Obviously, Saban's still going to have a role in the Alabama program, but he's not going to be the single recruiter and the single person that's getting things done. I mean, let's look at the top 5 programs in recruiting right now. You have Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame, and Texas A&M. That's pretty good company to be in if it's your first year as the head coach and you're still trying to prove yourself as a recruiter. Now, obviously, it's not signing day, but I imagine most of those guys will stay committed, if not all of them. I mean, maybe a few surprises will happen. Surprises always happen in recruiting, and you never know. But generally, where you are is close to where you're going to be by signing day. But we've seen him do very good jobs other places. Obviously, the main point against this is that it's Sioux Falls and they're not really a major program. They're not in major college football. But, I mean, football is football. You're still going to be able to coach at different levels. Football doesn't change that much. The only thing that changes is talent acquisition, which, as we've established, he seems to be proving himself in. I mean, we go back to Fresno State. Within 2 years at Fresno State, he was competing with Oregon and actually lost to Oregon by the same margin as Ohio State that year, which I think is grounds enough to say, I think he knows what he's doing even with lesser talent. Now imagine what happens when he inherits Alabama. Or you could look at what he did at Washington, which is a power program. He inherited a 4-8 team and immediately took that team to win 11 games the first year and took him to a national championship the second year. Imagine what he could do in a short of time, inheriting not a 4-8 team, but the greatest dynasty in the history of college football. And this is why I think it's so myopic of Auburn fans to assume that he's just going to completely fail because he's not Saban. Saban set a high standard, but that doesn't mean that the person that comes after him is just automatically going to be terrible. And I know the SEC is a more difficult conference to compete in than the Pac-12 was, but you're also still probably the most talented or close to the most talented team in your league. You're still going to have the advantage a lot of the time. And if they recruit like this every year, that's going to remain the case. I'm an Auburn fan and I can admit this, because I don't have to lie to myself to feel good about the future of Auburn football. I don't have to say Alabama's going to be terrible for me to have confidence in the future of Auburn football. And I also don't have to say that because the facts don't support that narrative. People say he's not going to win a national championship at Alabama, which may be true. We'll have to see what happens. But even if he doesn't, he can still be really good, and he can also still be better than your program. Assuming that now, just because Saban's gone, you're immediately going to surpass Alabama, or immediately Alabama's going to fall off a cliff in terms of win percentage, in terms of recruiting, in terms of whatever metric you want to use to measure what's a better program, it's just a fantasy. If Alabama does fall off, you're not going to know immediately, and it might take some time because you've still got some of Saban's guys in there. I do like the staff moves that Deboer has made. I think the defensive staff in particular, Kane Womack from South Alabama, I mean, you get a head coach. You actually get multiple head coaches in there because Maurice Linguist was the head coach at Buffalo. You got multiple head coaches coming in there, and I think that's very important for what they're trying to do. They're trying to build this program for the long haul. They're trying to build a sustainable program, and I think they are succeeding at doing that. So maybe you say, well, he's not going to win a championship at Alabama, to get back to my previous point. He seemed to almost get there within 2 years at a program that had previously been 4-8. It was a program that was dead in the water when he got there because of the way Jimmy Lake ran it. I mean, Jimmy Lake was losing to FCS teams in the first year, and obviously the first year was the COVID year, so whatever. But 2021, Jimmy Lake lost to an FCS team and then turned around and lost by 3 touchdowns to Michigan, and they also got blown out at home by Washington State, a Washington State team that, by the way, had previously fired their coach earlier in the year. He turned that program into an immediately winning program, and then got him to a national championship game the second year. If he can almost get there with a team like that, what do you think he's going to do when he inherits the best dynasty in the history of the game of college football? I don't know that Alabama is going to, lose 3 games. They might go undefeated this year. I don't know what they're going to do. But you also don't know. It's assuming that it's some kind of certainty that Alabama is going to fall off a cliff because you don't believe in Kalen Deboer is fine. All right? And, I'm kind of rooting for the guy to fail because I want Alabama to be bad. But I also do know it would be fine for the Iron Bowl rivalry if both Alabama and Auburn were good. And acting like it's not the case is just ridiculous. Obviously, you want to see your rivals fail. I get that. But if you're going to say they are going to fail and you're going to predict it to happen, you had better have facts to back it up, because right now, none exist. There's nothing that says Alabama's going to be bad this year that we can see in July of 2024. Thanks for watching, everyone. Subscribe for more college football content, and have a good one.